Welcome back, fellow shop rats. Today we are back on a truck called Wanda. Got a master cylinder brand new here in a box, I hope. Haven't ever opened it. It's been here a while. And we're going to get the truck up here, get the master put on, and diagnose and determine what we need to do for brake lines. So we're going to take you through the process today of bench bleeding a master cylinder and installing it on the truck, and we're going to go from there and see what we can get done. As always, it's just about spending the day here in the shop. I'm Mike.
This is My Cars Shop.
I'm not sure if this comes with a reservoir or not. I don't know. It's something I ordered online, which I don't normally order stuff online. I prefer to shop local, but the price was so much cheaper. I mean, ridiculously so much cheaper, and it is a Raybestos brand, so it's not just some El Cheapo knockoff. So let's see what it is. The box has been opened before. That concerns me a little, but it still looks like it's in its plastic, and it does come with its reservoir, and it even comes with the plugs for bench bleeding, so that's good. Now, we may bench bleed this a different way, but, you know, one way or another, we'll get it done. Oh, interesting. This is the aluminum housing one. I have, there's a seal down there. I have both styles here for these trucks. Neither of them are good, but I have an aluminum one and I have a cast iron one. This is aluminum, which means it probably won't last as long, but for what we're going to do with this truck, it'll be just fine. There are several different ways you can bench bleed a master cylinder. One way you can do it is to have lines that you put on here that come up and go into the reservoir. The way I'm going to do it today, I decided, is to use it exactly as designed with the stuff that comes with it. One of the things they talk about is, I hear people say is, well, you don't need a bench bleed. You can just put it on the vehicle and bleed it on the vehicle. That's not recommended because what you can do with your hand when you're pushing the piston in is not nearly as powerful as what you can do with your foot when you're pushing down on the brake pedal. So it's not recommended to put it in the vehicle to do its bench bleeding because you can damage the internal parts until everything gets fully bled and the air pockets and stuff are out of it. Now, what are the odds of that happening? I don't know. Have I done it? Yes, admittedly I have. Do I recommend it? No, I don't. I think it's better to do the proper procedure. So let's take you through that. So we're just taking the caps off. I'm going to put some high quality DOT3 SuperTech brake fluid in and fill up the reservoirs. The reservoirs are separate to a point, and then they're not separate. There's a baffle between, and it goes up so far, and then what is in there goes and spills over into the other reservoir after it reaches that point. So I'm going to leave the caps off, actually, because we're not putting pressure on it yet. I'm not pushing anything here. My caps are still here. I'm going to get a rag put under here, take this off, and just let it gravity bleed for a little bit. That allows the fluid to kind of go through into the master cylinder a little bit before I start pushing. It basically gives an opportunity for the seals to get a little lubricated. I don't have any real sexy camera angles to offer here. It's kind of a limited spot. But, okay, so I got my rag there, and I'm just pulling my seals out. Now, they may not gravity bleed, but we're going to give it a little second. And then if it doesn't, we'll put a little pressure on it. But let's just let that sit for a minute or 5 and see if it will come through. All right, it's been a few minutes now and nothing has come through, which is fine. But it still has given it some opportunity, hopefully, for the fluid to get down in there a little bit. So I'm just going to go ahead with the caps out and push this in. There we go. We're getting some fluid out of that one. So I'll put my threaded plug in that one first. So I know that we've got fluid in that back portion. We'll screw that in there. Just like that. Just finger tight. Doesn't need to be crazy. And I'm getting air bubbles inside. That's good. I'll give this a shove. I'm getting air bubbles out of the front one now a little bit. This is still open. Still getting air bubbles out of it. All right, I'm not getting any fluid out of that one yet, but that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and put my cap on it. And then we're going to do the lather, rinse, and repeat. And you just keep doing that until the air bubbles stop coming up. I'll see if I can get you over here so you can see. See those little bubbles come up? Yep, you can see them. Okay, I was making sure you could see them in the camera. Tiny bubbles in the fluid makes me happy. I don't know, I can't come up with weird lyrics. And I can feel my piston traveling less and less in there. So I started with slower strokes, okay? And now I'm doing it a little more because I know I got fluid down in there. I can hear it really, there we go. I can really start hearing it now. So what's happening is my plugs out here are leaking a little bit. Yep, they are. So this one's not tightened enough to stop that. There we go. Okay, now see we got a good bubble of fluid, or a good swirl of fluid there. And not as much air, so we're getting it. You can see how that squirting up. We're still getting air out of the back one. I'm going to put the lid on this. Keep working this a little more. Try to get all that air out of there that we can. So it's going to be a lot of lather, rinse, and repeat. So I'll be back. Getting a little bits of air, but the plugs are leaking a little bit. So I think we're good. Yeah, I'm not getting much now at all. So once in a great while. So as long as both pistons are full in there, both reservoirs, or not reservoirs, chambers are full in there, any air that's in there will get pushed out when we bleed the brakes. So we should be good to go. To remove the master cylinder, it's 9/16 on the nuts here and 1/2 inch on the bolts there. I've had this master cylinder on and off of here several times off camera a couple months ago when I was seeing if I had one that actually worked. I wasn't filming. So I know everything is good and loose here. Normally I would recommend some Allen wrenches for this, but you know, it's not Allen wrenches, sorry, line wrenches. But I know everything is good and loose. So I am going to put a little PV blaster on there just to give things a little bit of extra, to be sure we don't damage anything. You don't want a lot on those lines because you don't want to get that into your brake fluid at all. But I don't feel like having to reflare lines either. Even though I know they've been loose, I still think it's better to have a little Lubadauber on there and just make sure everything is copacetic and not so pathetic. There we go. Now, if the braking system was intact on this truck, I would normally bleed the master cylinder right there as those lines and we'd be done. But we had to replace a rear wheel cylinder, remember? And there's a leaking line on the front that I've discovered also. So I'm not going to worry about bleeding it here. We're going to have to bleed the whole system anyway. So we'll get that done as soon when Becky gets home, I hope. But in the meantime, I'm going to work on getting that line replaced on the front that needs to be fixed. Just went and pumped the pedal. First time in the last 3 master cylinders I put on out of my junk cars around here that I actually have a pedal and I can hear the brake fluid squirting out of the place where it's leaking. So winner. Well, here's where we're at. The rear brake line that I fixed before ended up having another leak. So full disclosure, I should have replaced the whole thing, but I didn't. Now I did. That's done. got that fixed. I knew there was a leak up front. It took me forever to figure it out. I found that it's coming from down by the master cylinder and spraying out on the exhaust pipe. Okay, so that I looked at it, it was the rear line feeding the back. So it need to really probably just put a whole line from the proportioning valve all the way to the rear axle. So I thought, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to block off the rear brakes and make sure everything works good in the front. So I put a block off, screwed in a block off cap that I have. I have one for each port on the master cylinder that I made years ago. So to block off the rear brakes, which is the front line on the master cylinder, I blocked that off, stepped on the pedal expecting to get a spongy pedal at least, but no, all of a sudden I heard gush, and the line from the proportioning valve to the front axle is also rotted. So I need to just replace the lines from the proportioning valve to the axles. I think the lines from the master cylinder down to the proportioning valve are okay, but probably what needs to happen is I need to take the proportioning valve off the frame, get that stuff out where we can look at it. I think I'm going to just call a friend and call in a favor and see if he can come over and help me do that. I don't do real well laying on my back working on stuff like this, and I obviously don't have a hoist here, so maybe somebody a little younger can work with me on that and we can get it done in an afternoon, replace as many brake lines as we can, and just be done with it. So that's going to be another day's project. I did make good progress. The master cylinder is working good, and so I think we're just going to end up replacing a big chunk of the lines on this thing and get the brakes done so we can start using this truck. So that's going to do it for this one. I was hoping to be driving the truck around a little bit, even if it was only on front brakes, but it still has no brakes at this point. But it's not about completing huge projects around here, but it's about spending the day in the shop and just taking another bite out of a project and moving further forward. That'll do it. We'll catch you on the next one. Rah!